Gentlewoman is recognized.
Let me thank Mr. Goodlatte and Mr. Conyers and the Judiciary Committee and Mr. Sensenbrenner, who mentioned yesterday that he had been working on this for 2 years, and we have joined him as the original co-sponsors and supporting this on the Crime Subcommittee, which I am ranking, along with Mr. Sensenbrenner, and this is a moment that all of us are appreciative of. As I thought about this week, where we are honoring police and we are also acknowledging those who have fallen in the line of duty, this bill, the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act, becomes even more important. This week, the House adopted a number of bills that together are intended to provide a response to the opioid crisis that is commensurate with the scope of the problem. Yesterday, the House passed by an overwhelming vote the primary contribution of the Judiciary Committee to this effort, H.R. 5046, the Comprehensive Opioid Reduction Act. I'm an original co-sponsor of that bill, and I was the co-sponsor of the predecessor bill, both of which were introduced by my colleague Jim Sensenbrenner, the chairman of the subcommittee. I commend him for the years of work and persistence on this issue. I also commend Chairman Goodlatte and Ranking Member Conyers for their leadership, for it would not have been shepherded through the committee if we had not all worked together to find common ground on this very important issue. That has been the trend of the Judiciary Committee as we work on criminal justice reform, which includes sentencing reduction, prison reform, provocative, innovative bills that are going to change the lives of many of those incarcerated for many, many years. We're going to turn mass incarceration upside down and on its ears and cause it to be extinct. This new approach to opioids is part of that. This bill has no mandatory minimums. As we take the steps today which will allow us to engage in discussions with the Senate so that we may soon send a bill to the President for his signature, I'm pleased of the progress that is made. I can only hope that our work on sentencing reduction, prison reform, and juvenile justice will have the same kind of impetus and wind up on the President's desk. That is the vision, I believe, of many Republicans and Democrats in and out of this House, and as well, it is the vision of the President, but more importantly, it is the vision of suffering families who do not have their loved ones with them. The reason we must work together is that a leading killer of Americans today is drug overdose, started first by prescription use in many instances. Between 2014 and 2014, almost 500,000 people died from drug overdoses. That's a startling number. In 2014 alone, more than 47,000 people died of drug overdoses. The largest percentage of overdose deaths in 2014 was attributed to opioids, like prescription painkillers, methadone, morphine, and heroin. Specifically, 28,647 people overdosed and died because of an opioid in 2014. This is an emergency, and it is a combination of prescription painkillers and heroin. Prescription painkillers abuse is the strongest risk for future use of heroin. That is our athletes, or those who've had surgery, just everyday Americans who find themselves caught in the trap of addiction. Approximately 3 out of 4 new heroin users report that their use began with the abuse of prescription drugs. Heroin use becomes appealing to those addicted to prescription drugs because it is cheaper and easier to obtain. And due to its potency, heroin use tends to lead to addiction. We know that from the 1980s and 1990s with crack cocaine. That crack was a more potent extraction of cocaine, and we saw many of those individuals not get treatment. They actually and only got incarceration. Heroin addiction is often deadly, just as crack cocaine was, and leading to overdose or other chronic diseases. The rate at which the occurrence of heroin overdose deaths increased is cause for alarm. In the 4 years between 2010 and 2014, heroin overdoses more than tripled. In 2013, 11 million people admitted to the improper use of prescription painkillers and therefore were at a heightened risk of becoming addicted. That is why we worked together this week on legislation to put together something like an omnibus to reduce the risk of addiction and to fund appropriate treatment responses to those who abuse these drugs. The bill was passed yesterday, reflects the strategy by proposing to establish a grant program to be administered by the Department of Justice to assist states and local governments. It is important to note these statistics. The rate of deaths from heroin overdoses count from the white population, 267% increase between 2010 and 2014. In African Americans, increase of 213%, 2010 to 2014. Hispanic, 137 increase from 2010 to 2014. And Native Americans, 236%. No aspect of American life has been uninfluenced by the devastation of heroin overdoses and death, many of it impacting families whose young, bright, and talented, athletic, and otherwise young people have fallen victim to this. And so this grant program is extremely helpful, of which I'm very pleased, because it deals with monitoring the prescription drugs, it deals with matching those who are committed to working with police officers.
Time has expired.
And it is truly an important bill. Let me close, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Speaker, by saying
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
We must have money to support all of this, and I'm hoping that this will not be the last stop that we will make.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.